Welcome, welcome to another business badassery. I'm Billie Olds.
And I'm Caleb.
So, Caleb, you're looking really festive today, and I was feeling left out because I don't really have any Christmassy stuff in the house. So,
Oh,
there you go.
that works.
I'll just join wearing my summer hat.
That actually improves your appearance instead of making mine. See, the deal is, Billie, I'm extraordinarily sexy and I'm just a very attractive man. And wherever I go, women just swoon and like pass out. So what I have to do is I have to like wear things like this to reduce the sexiness so I can actually get any work done. Yeah, it's one of those things.
You know, that's why I have to live like a hermit here in the North Woods of the US, because there are just big mobs of men. So I just live like a hermit.
Right. You know what that reminds me of is that you once told me, this is like when we first started working together, you went on a date with someone and he said, wow, you're an alpha female. I remember that.
Oh my God.
And you said, well, actually, I work for a company that, yeah, it was great.
It is one of my favorite things, actually.
That was hilarious.
With some of our team as well, like our overseas teams, the younger guys particularly have never met a chick like me. So it often provides amusement and education.
I was just thinking that we don't know exactly when this podcast will go. Well, I have a pretty good idea, I guess I can figure this out. If this podcast goes up after Christmas, then not only do I look like a dumbass, I look like a double dumbass. So I guess it doesn't matter. Next time I'll have to wear like
you're just curating that attraction level. Again, I'm thinking ahead, planning, strategizing. I'm all about it, brother.
Right.
So one thing I wanted to talk about today, Caleb, this came up in conversation last Saturday. For those of you who don't know, Caleb's company hosts a really awesome program called the 90-Day Business Builder. And I'm really lucky chick who gets to be one of the head coaches, or the head coach, actually.
The head coach.
One of the things that came up was, how do you become an expert? How do you get over the idea of faking it until you make it, having imposter syndrome, or coming from a neurodivergent background? And that one really struck me personally. Caleb knows this. Some of the audience knows. I was diagnosed in my 40s with ADHD and later on the autism spectrum. So I didn't know this. My family didn't know this. My friends thought I was a little bit weird. Everyone does, and that's okay. We all have our weird. But what I realized is that I set up all of these tools for myself as a really young person to mask those difficulties that I had. And those setting up tools and systems and routines is what I needed for me to stay on track as an individual, as a human, and not to feel kind of overwhelmed by things. And what I realized is that became my superpower. I can now go into companies and understand where there are disconnects, understand their end-to-end processes and communication issues, and how to break things down to train staff. Or to get new ideas across, because those are things that I've really struggled with in my life. And I know, Caleb, you have some similarities in that you're really a very introverted guy, despite what your on-screen persona, which is your persona, but in limited doses. Have you had experiences like that too, where you realize you're a little different and you're leveraging that? And it becomes an item that draws success for you?
Well, you said how people think you're weird. No one thinks I'm weird. That's just you. I never have that problem. Everyone thinks I am perfectly normal. Everyone who knows me goes, well, Caleb is the most normal guy. I mean, he's so boring and normal and lives just this normal life. And yeah. So for me, it was, wait a minute, before I answer that question, tell the listeners the example you gave to me off air a minute ago about what you said to the business builder guys when they were asking that, because it was perfect. It makes us sound great. And someone said, well, I want to ruin the surprise. Tell the people what and then I'll answer your question, but that was such a good thing.
it was a really great experience. We had all these guys, and in our 90-day business builder, in the 500K accelerator, which is our year-long program, we have a lot of really, really smart people. Some of whom have ideas that I don't understand. I can't understand or grasp the entirety of the concept because it's this really technical thing. It's amazing.
Right.
And I realized as we went around the room and they were asking about how you get past that imposter syndrome, or how do you start feeling and owning the role that you're in? And I said, gosh, guys, I don't know, but I can tell you it can be done because you've paid X number of dollars with 35 other guys to be in this 90-day program. I went to college for 5 minutes. Caleb didn't go to college at all. So you are, literally you are paying 2 dropouts or not even non-starters on very non-traditional paths to teach
and paying a decent amount of money, several $1,000s.
Yes, multiple $1,000s.
Right.
And one of the guys in the group said, "Bam, mic drop." He was really excited by that because it definitely exemplifies the idea that you can become an expert if you follow your passions, follow your interests. It doesn't have to be down a traditional educational path. And that wouldn't have worked for me. I would have fallen asleep. Let's be honest.
Right.
So back to you, Caleb.
Back to your question. So, it's weird. You asked me a question that I had to really think about the answer. Usually I don't have that problem. Yes, I'm introverted. And, what I figured out years ago was, and you can tell me if you agree or disagree, and I've given this advice to people in my audience, is that if you're an introvert, the goal, if you want to be successful in life, particularly in business, is if you are an introvert, there's nothing wrong with that. However, you need to build your social skills and/or your confidence up to the point where when people meet you, they can't tell that you're an introvert. And I'm there now. It took me a while to do that. I worked on that throughout my 20s and maybe early 30s. And now that is literally the case today, in my 50s now, where when people meet me and I tell them I'm an introvert, they're like, "What?" And what's really funny is that when people meet me and my wife together as a couple, so I married someone opposites attract. So I am a confident, outgoing introvert. I married a woman who is very extroverted, but is very shy and quiet and kind of sits in the back of the room with her hands folded and waits for someone to come talk to her. She's not going to go talk to you. But once you sit down and talk to her, she'll talk your fucking ear off for 5 hours and she'll love every minute of it. So literally the opposite of me. Whereas me, if I'm in a public setting, I'm loud and boisterous for about 20 minutes and then I want to go home and be alone. So it's literally the opposite. But anyway, what's that? Yeah, to recharge. Correct. Yeah, and for the listeners who aren't aware, I'll clarify that statement in a minute. She's exactly right. So what will happen is, I remember more than once now, we've met someone, and they'll see me talk. I'll talk to this person, and then Big Firefly will barely talk, and then I'll say, "So yeah, I'm the introvert in the couple, and she's the extrovert," and they'll be like, "What?" So my objective as an introvert was to get to the point where you couldn't tell. And to Billie's point, what she mentioned earlier is introvert and extrovert is not, I like people or I like hanging out with people or I'm shy, because you can have introverts like me who are not shy at all, who are the opposite of shy. You can have shy extroverts. That would be my wife. So it's not about being shy or being scared or liking social interaction or disliking it, because you can have introverts who love social interaction. I mean, you and I both are introverts who like social interaction at least to a point. So it's about, if you didn't know, it's about where you get your energy. So extroverts get their energy by being with people. So when they're with people all the time, they get more energy. They're energized. Introverts are drained by being with people and they are energized by being alone. And I've mentioned this before in my content, where when I do all-day workshops, things like that, or all-day seminars or all-day events, it's fine for me. But at the end of the day, at like 4 o'clock, 4:30, I am very tired. It's like I've been lifting weights all day and I want to go back to my hotel room and shut the door and turn off my phone and be by myself. Not because I didn't like the experience. I loved it. It was great. But I'm like, wow, I'm just worn out because I'm an introvert. And so I have to go back and recharge, because often people want to go out to dinner or something. Like, I'm busy, which is usually true. I'll probably go back to my hotel and work. If I have to go out,
busy. Yeah.
Right, I do. And if I need to go out again, I will wait at least 3 or 4 hours. Then I might go out again. But even then, I'm just, So that's what Billy said about recharging. But back to your question. So that was my version of what you talked about, is that, and because I've known a lot of people who have ADHD or ADD, and it's an extreme version, and they have to use things like, maybe you know about some of this, every hour on the hour, their phone will like beep, and it'll help them keep on track, things like that. Benjamin Franklin, I believe, had ADHD. They didn't call it that back then, but he had that problem, and he developed various techniques to get him back on track. And where were we going with this? Oh, we're being an expert.
Being an expert, or really leveraging your idiosyncrasies into superpowers.
Oh, that's okay. Got it. Okay, sure. So that's great. So here's the thing. And I think I've said this before too. If you're an introvert who is very socially confident, very socially calibrated, so you have an introvert with lots of strong social skills, you are like Superman or Superwoman. You are. So I'll give you the inverse. Some people say, well, I'm an extrovert. Okay, so the inverse to that is the extrovert who is as organized and focused as an introvert. Because the dangers of being an extrovert, you guys who are extroverts, is that you're all over the goddamn place. You're doing this and this and this and this, and you're talking and doing this, and you can't focus on projects because you're just all over the goddamn place, which is great. You're naturally socially calibrated. That's why strong extroverts have natural people skills that I had to work on. I don't know if you did. Did you have to work on your people skills?
I still do every day.
Yeah, exactly.
I struggle. I'm the kind of person that you can put me in front of 30,000 people and have me speak to an audience on a topic, and I'm fine. If you ask me to walk into a networking event where I don't know anyone and to make small talk, I mean, flop, sweat, fear, anxiety. I absolutely still hate those circumstances. It's fine if I know you and we can talk about one of my hyperfixations. Right. So my hyperfixation started with horses as a little kid. And then after I ended that career, I hyperfixated on business. So realistically, I'm just feeding my hyperfixation. And for me, that works out really nicely. I'm able to leverage.
But you had to work on that. You had to work on the social part of your being, because I certainly did. My God.
It's an absolute continual process. And I still have anxiety with coaching calls when it's a new person. I have no reason.
Do you really?
I'm calling for a reason. They pay me. I've never had.
You have anxiety for? Do you really do that? Because I can't tell. I've been on coaching calls with you. I can't tell that you're nervous. Wow.
Always.
I'm shocked to hear that. I'm really surprised.
It's not really nervous. It's more anxiety.
Anxiety, right.
So it's the unknown. I know that I know my content.
Of course.
I know that I have a strong background and history to pull from. But there's still just that anxiety of, this is a new person. I have to understand the rhythm and start understanding a new person's communication. And for me, that produces anxiety. So I have to attack that, if you will, attack the new conversation with a plan. So that just means I spend 15 minutes prepping for a call, or 20 minutes. Right. I do a little bit of research. And for
matter of fact, you're better at that than I am. You're better at that prep work than I am. I do a little bit of that, but not enough. Yeah, you're better at that than I am. But let me think of where I was going with this. But you had to work on it. What was my point?
I always have to work on it. And all of the coaches have gone through that same process, or are still in that same process, where there's a little anxiety with a new person because we just want to serve them well. And
but now that you have the organization and perhaps maybe the drive or whatever other introverted traits are valuable for introverts, you have that. Plus now you're socially calibrated in that you're amazing at coaching and as a consultant and as all of these things. You have both these skill sets now. Now you are a superhuman. So
Right,
that's exactly how this works.
And I can go into a networking event. Like I can physically make myself do it now.
I was going to say, you could
I
do
would
it.
have been outside barfing. There's no way it would have happened.
Right. Yeah, you could do
evolution. It's
right.
Seeking discomfort. Being on camera for me, I freaking hate it. You know this, Caleb.
Yeah.
Probably for 6 months, he's like, "Yeah, we should do a podcast," and I was so
remember that.
I freaking hate it. I don't get feedback on camera in the same way that I do in front of an audience.
Right.
But these are part of our growth is seeking that discomfort, leveraging the skills you have, just pushing yourself a little bit further.
When I was in seventh, sorry, go ahead. Sorry.
Oh, no, please.
When I was in seventh grade, so let's see, how old is that? That is 12. When I was 12, I was in a small private Catholic school, and we had our first school dance for the junior high school kids. And I was so nervous. I was in the room, and it's only like, really like 25 kids between the 7th and 8th grade, something like maybe 30. Well, maybe a little more than that, 35. But anyway, and I was in the room for a few minutes, and I just couldn't stand it. And I went outside, and I stood in the bushes. And I stood in the bushes for like, I don't remember how long it was, half an hour, until my parents came to pick me up, because I just couldn't stand it. So I remember being that low on the social scale, starting when I was 12. And I was like that until well into high school. And then by the time I was like a sophomore in high school, maybe 15, I started becoming a little more normal and opening up and things like that. And then in my early 20s, I didn't have anxiety, but I was a dick. I thought I knew everything. And I would, when I worked in the corporate world, I said, "You guys are idiots and you should do this." And I didn't know anything. I was a dumbass. They talk about how teenagers think they know everything, they don't know shit. That was me in my early 20s. I must have had a few years delay, probably Arrested Development. And so it was around, when I started my first full-time business consulting, 24, 25, 26, I said, okay, this thing about everyone is stupid and I don't like people and I don't want to talk to people, I'm an introvert, that's not going to serve me. I'm not going to hit my goals with this attitude. I'm not going to hit my goals with this lack of skill set. I've got to learn to either like it or at least be okay with it. And I have to learn to be somewhat good at it. So that's when I read, for you introverts, Dale Carnegie, How to Win Friends and
Influence People. Yeah.
Right. That should be a required book for all human beings, frankly. And read that. There's another good book called Confidence and Power in Dealing with People by Les Giblin. Also very good. I read those two books and I read them a few times, and I started practicing and saying people's name and smiling when you talk to people and looked them in the eye. I'm like, all right, fuck. And I didn't like it, but it worked. I did great. I mean, I was making six figures by the time I was in my late 20s. So it worked. And if I was this asshole or this, not an asshole, but just this, guy who wanted to be a hermit all day and go home and play on his computers all day, which a lot of guys are, these guys don't make a lot of money. At least, even introverts like, for example, like Bill Gates, very nerdy, very introverted, but he knew how to talk to people. He probably didn't like talking to people, but he did. He knew how to talk to people and different kinds of people. And the inverse example would be an extrovert who is as focused and as organized as an introvert is Arnold Schwarzenegger. If you watch Arnold Schwarzenegger talk, he is so extroverted. He just talks and talks and talks and talks and jokes around and farts around, and he's pure extrovert. But if you read his autobiography, which I have, he writes down his goals. He has these very set plans. He has these spreadsheets, just like an introvert. So when you have the opposite of what you are, that's when you can become a superpower. I don't know how this ties into our topic, but you're absolutely right about that. Yeah. So that was my progression.
Well, I have two things to add to that. Firstly, I would say I think your introversion means that you are much more mercenary about meetings and about really valuing your time and not giving it, not wasting it in unnecessary calls, repetitive work, etc.
Oh my God, yes.
So instead, you create really good systems. Mm-hmm. And you keep dialing those in more and more tightly. So I think that's one of your superpowers, is that constant dial in. And you have something that's different to most introverts. I struggle with communication. It's something I have to really be cognizant of and think. about what I want to say and how to get things across. It's not as easy for me as it is for you. I think I spent a lot of time communicating with animals because I didn't have to be verbal, right? It's a totally different kind of communication. And for me, it wasn't as draining as a human conversation was. So another one of your superpowers is having leaned into that for many, many years now and going against your own grain and style of learning and expressing so that you could grow. And I think that's another step of, taking those steps toward discomfort, making yourself uncomfortable, putting yourself out there in different ways. And all of a sudden it does become natural. It becomes like muscle memory to walk into a strange place, to smile and say, "It's great to meet you, Caleb," and put a smile on your face.
And to be clear, for you people listening, you listening, no, you viewers and listeners, the audience for the audience, I want to reiterate this. It's really important. And then Billie can give her opinion on this and how she views this. I didn't do these things because I liked it. I didn't do these things because I even thought they were a good idea. I didn't give a shit about these things. I wanted my goals. I wanted back then my 6-figure income, and I had a bunch of goals, but my goals have changed over time. But I wanted the big money. I wanted the location independence. I wanted the freedom. I wanted to have my own company. I didn't want to have a job. I wanted that lifestyle so bad. I said, okay, I guess I'm going to have to do this. And I personally know people who want these things too, but they're like, well, I don't want to learn how to do that. And those are the guys who don't make a lot of money. And I've said before, there are men in my audience who are smarter than me, who are more talented than me, who would run circles around me, but they don't want to take the time and effort to learn 1 or 2 skills that they have to learn that they think are stupid. Fine. I think some of that's stupid too, but you still have to learn these skills. So to Billie's point, I had to make myself do this. It wasn't natural, and it wasn't something I thought. I'm sure you've had this experience. I have been in many conversations, including conversations in business scenarios where I'm like, yeah, and the guy's talking and blah, blah, and you don't give a shit what he's saying, but you can't go, yeah, this is stupid. All right, whatever. Let's move on. You can't do that. You go, oh, really? Yeah. Yes. And frankly, a parallel to that is when I was doing a lot of dating 15 years ago and going on lots of first dates with women tend to talk a little more. So I just go, oh, really? Oh, and then what happened? Oh, and there are men and women for that matter who don't want to learn that skill set. So it's not just business. It's also your personal life, your family life, all these things. But I forced myself to do this because I knew this is something I had to do to hit my goals. I wanted my goals bad enough. I don't know how you feel about that, but that's how I felt about it.
I feel the same way. Putting myself on camera sucks. I still hate it. I still feel uncomfortable. It's never going to be something that I wake up and say, oh, yay, it's a podcast day. Like I dig talking to you. I dig it more if there wasn't a camera in my face.
Yeah, right.
And I'm always, it's likely that I will have that aversion, and that's okay. The thing the thing that's important to me is meeting those same goals as you, Caleb. My voice cannot only resonate to a certain small audience if I'm insisting on doing everything in a one-on-one scenario.
Right.
I can only help to maybe restructure 2 businesses a year. That's great for those 2 businesses. That's fine for me, but I'd like to be able to do more. I get satisfaction from seeing companies organized and their workforce staying with them. Like that drives me every day. I get excited about that. The only way to expand my reach is to take these steps into the uncomfortable. Right. So I'm willing to do it. I don't have to love it. It doesn't have to be my favorite thing. It just needs to be an aversion that I get over and understand that my desire for this goal has to surmount this aversion down here. So Correct. As long as I can stay ahead of my aversion and understand why I have an aversion to doing it, then I can keep rolling. So acknowledge that. It's okay to acknowledge you hate doing something. If you can delegate it in your business or in your life, do it.
So,
but if you can't, suck it up, Buttercup. These are all important tools.
How do we circle this back to becoming an expert? Because I think we always meander on our topics, which is fine. But I think that's a really good topic. Let's start with you. So you didn't go to college like me. At what point did you consider yourself an expert, or how did you make yourself an expert, specifically in business context, when you were new? Or how did you make that transition from non-expert to expert in your mind? How did you do that? Because I think that's valuable.
I can honestly say that I don't know. Other people told me I was an expert or that I was very good at things long before I would have ever had the confidence to say that about myself. Because I do like to stay kind of behind the curtain. But what happened through life was I'd hear about different opportunities or challenges that people were having in their business or their lives. And I would politely as I could with somebody with poor social skills, would interject myself in places that others wouldn't. Because I didn't really have that shame to say, hey, I heard you were dealing with this. I know that you haven't asked, but I thought these two solutions might work for you. And then just, kind of hands up, back off. So I'm not approaching people in a way that makes them feel defensive, right? And I just took those because I lacked the social tact to understand that you don't really do that. And for some people, they, like me, they're oblivious. For other people, I don't care about the social tact. Like, I want to get in, I want an answer to this question, whatever it is. So yeah, basically for me, it was foregoing tact and just putting myself out there as a person that had solutions. And over time, more and more people would come to me. They said, hey, I heard you help Bob with this crazy event together, and you source these things like magic. I don't know how you did it, but can you help me with a similar challenge? And that just, for me, kept snowballing and snowballing. So it would go from putting events together and doing small things to shipping horses around the world, or helping hire staff, or for me getting to ride horses that cost more than any home I will probably ever own, was a lack of tact and just injecting myself and saying, I see you have a problem. I think I can help. And over time, I was competing in the horse world. So over time, I was competing at higher and higher levels, attaining national titles. But at the same time, I was building those different business relationships, right? So I'd still be working on projects all year long. And it just kept snowballing and becoming bigger and bigger, to the point where about 12 years ago, someone said, hey, can you just start this business for me? I have this idea, but I don't actually want to do anything. You're smart. You've done these other things. Can you just do that? And I did quickly. And I found it very, very easy. So again, more people kept coming to me through that referral network and saying, I don't know how she does this shit, but she kind of seems to know how to do everything. And it was only upon meeting you and you saying, like, yeah, I hired you because you're an expert, that I finally felt like saying, yes, I'm an expert, okay?
Even though you were an expert years before you met me.
I was, but I didn't recognize that.
Yeah, interesting.
I recognized myself as a problem solver.
No.
Which is a very different. So sometimes you just need to meet the right people, be in the right headspace to make those transitions and to see yourself as an expert. Even when I had national titles in the horse world, I never saw myself as an expert because there's always so much more to learn. And that's really the problem that we run into in our audience, Caleb, collectively, is that we have a lot of really, really smart people, like some scary smart people in the audience. And those are the people that the smarter you are and the more attuned you are, the more you realize that you know only a minuscule amount of what there is to learn in the universe. So you're going to have a harder time calling yourself an expert. But the reality is, if you can solve a problem in a unique way, if you can solve a series of problems for people, you are likely an expert. Would you agree?
Yeah. So I think I know this. One of the challenges of being a human being is that we devalue our own skill sets. If we're good at something, we have this subconscious view that, well, that's no big deal. Everyone's good at that. So if you're good at repairing computers, whatever, you have this subconscious thought that, well, everyone knows how to do that. That's not a value of the marketplace. Who cares? Everyone knows how to do that. And you have to snap yourself out of it and realize that no, the vast majority of human beings are not good at what you're good at. You don't think it's any big deal because it's such a part of your life. It's the old saying about fish in the ocean don't know where the water is. You're like, you're in water. And they look at it and go, what water? I'll see water, because it's all around them. So that's the biggest challenge with a lot of guys is I don't have any, I get this all the time. I don't have any marketable skills. I don't know how to do anything. I'm dumb. And my famous statement, I've said this for years. If I were to work with you one-on-one, Billy or I, either one of us, we're to work with you one-on-one for like 2 hours with a clipboard and grill you on your history, your skill sets, your education, if any, books you've read, things you've experienced in your life, jobs you've had, all that stuff. We could extract from you at least a minimum of 2 highly marketable skills that you could use as a consultant or a coach, one of those 2, or doing some kind of information thing like a ebook, or you absolutely at least 2, probably 3 or 4, but at least 2, no matter how dumb or young you think you are. And that's the first thing I thought of. The second thing I thought of when you're talking is I came up this very differently than you did. I started out in my business career, at least, as a computer consultant. And that was easy for me to say, I'm good at this because it was a technical area. And I worked for a software company for many years and I got really good at computers. And I said, I'm good at computers. I can fix your computer, or I can set up your network. And so that was easy. But then by the time I was in my early 30s, I realized that this is not something I wanted to do the rest of my life. There's kind of a hard cap on technical skills. I tell guys this all the time. If you're doing nothing but technical skills, you're more of a commodity. So there's more people in the world who have those technical skills. And I, as a business owner, can hire any one of a million people, millions, literally, people who know how to code or make a website or things like that. That's why we talk about niching and things like that. So anyway, I realized that back when, I was in my long time ago, early 30s. So I wanted to switch my consulting from technical IT consulting to time management consulting, because I really enjoyed that concept, and I was very busy. I always am. So I got this from a book called Winning Through Intimidation by Robert Ringer. One of the best books you'll ever read.
Read that forever.
Yeah, it's one of the best. It's one of my top 3, top 4 books that I recommend to people. And one of the chapters in that book, he states that he calls it the leapfrog theory. He says that if you want to be an expert or you want to be an authority, you just anoint yourself. You take a magic wand and you dap it on your own head. You say, I am now an authority. You don't need anyone else's permission to be an expert or authority on anything. You just say, I'm an authority. And so I was a little uncomfortable with it, but I did that. So I just went out in the marketplace and said, I am an authority on time management. Period. I am. And now, why was I an authority? Well, because I had a very busy life. I managed my time well. I read a bunch of books on time management. I kind of came up with my own time management systems, but that's it. I hadn't done any time management consulting. I had done consulting, so at least I could say I've done consulting, but it was IT consulting, not time management. And then and that worked. People just said, oh, for the most part, people said, oh, okay, you're a time management consultant. They accepted my self-evaluation. And then later that morphed into management consulting. And same thing, I said, I'm a management consultant now. Mm-hmm. I can help the CFO, CEO, blah, 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 blah. I can help these things. I can help productivity and, strategic planning, and I can do all these things. And I just self-anointed again. And they went, okay. Now, the more confident you are, the easier this is. I also think the older you are, the easier this is. It's harder if you're 22 to say I'm a management consultant. I understand that, but whatever. The point is that I just said, this is who I am. And the marketplace, which is exactly what Robert Ringer said in that book, the marketplace took me at that value. I said, this is who I am. Now, that requires a little confidence and a little balls. It does, but it's not hard. It wasn't hard to do that. It felt a little funny the first time I did it, back when I was 32 or whenever I made that transition, but it worked. So the takeaway is, there's a bunch of takeaways from this. You already have skills that are marketable in the marketplace. B, you don't have to wait for anyone to do this. To Billy's point, C, you just have to have either the confidence, or in Billy's case, it's funny how you and I came to the same place from a different area. The lack of tact or the lack of social skills to just say, you should do this. I think you should do this, and here's why. So this all goes back to the same stuff. So those are the 3 takeaways from this, is that's how you become an expert. Too many guys think, and I get these emails all the time. Well, Kale, I think I should go back to school. I think I should go back to college for 4 years and learn this skill so people think I'm an expert. No. Anything you want, you can learn part-time. There's an old statement I have in one of my books. I have a quote from Earl Nightingale, where he is watching TV. This is back in like the early 90s when the layoffs occurred, when the right sizing started occurring in the United States. And some guy got laid off, and he's like, and they were interviewing him. He was some blue collar worker. And he said, they laid me off from this factory. I've worked here for 20 years. I don't know how to do anything else. I'm screwed. And Earl Nightingale said, and I'll never forget this, so good I put this in my book as a quote from him. He said, are you insane? In 20 years in your spare time, you could learn heart surgery. You could be a fucking heart surgeon by now. In your spare, a few hours a week, over 20 years? What the hell have you been doing for 20 years? Right. So there's no excuse. There just isn't. Anyway.
There isn't. And I think the reality is that you need to follow your interests, follow your passions. The likelihood is that you have a unique voice. Caleb and I could read the same 10 books and come away with completely different information that matters to us and that we will implement in our life. Correct.
Right.
The thing that's important is that we interpret that and internalize that and make that knowledge part of our system and part of our voice. I can share with you coming from different perspectives. Caleb and I can have the conversation with you about the same damn thing and go down completely different avenues, getting you to the same result. And that is the unique gift that each of us has, including you. So if you want to be an expert, learn, follow your passions, jump down those rabbit holes, become obsessed with something if you want to, as long as it's healthy and you're not hurting anyone. But if you want to learn about the life cycle of the northern snowshoe hare, freaking do it. Become an expert by immersing yourself. That doesn't.
Now, let me ask you a question. I know we're going to get this. What if I'm not passionate about anything? We live in a generation of human beings who are not passionate about anything other than getting mad about politics and things like that.
What's kind of interesting to you in that case? What's kind of interesting? What's not odious? You don't pick it up and say, well, that's
a good thing. What do you not hate? That's a good point. Yeah, that's a good idea. Good point. I've talked about how you don't have to love what you do, but you can't hate what you do.
Yeah.
So at least if you find it, and I've said, if you could at least find something mildly interesting about what you do, that might be enough. Because not everyone's going to be super passionate about. Not everyone's going to be like, I want to be an Olympic ice skater when I'm 12 and I know what I want to do with my life. Most people are not going to be like that. So and I know I get pushback, or I hear pushback when people say follow your passion. A lot of people go, well, I don't have a passion. I'm just a normal guy. I like to play video games. I like to just go out with my friends. And
great. What do you do when you go out with your friends? Do you like to play horseshoes? Do you like to shoot pool? Do you like to listen to music? Pay attention to what you like to do.
Right.
And leverage it from there. Become an expert based on, you don't have to love it, but you should at least have an interest. You're not going to become an expert at anything, whether you're formally educated or self-educated, if you're not interested. So the first step, choose something to be interested in.
Right. That's it. Choose something to be interested in. Choose it. Because you're right.
Wiki, go to some resource and randomize it if you have to. I don't care. But if you're really having a hard time, go to 5 friends and say, what are things that you think are cool to do? And try it yourself.
Yeah. You may have to find something. And again, you don't have to love it. You don't have to love it. There's aspects of, I'm sure Billy said the same thing. There's aspects of our work that we don't like. Matter of fact, there's a few aspects, not many, that I don't like at all. But that doesn't matter. There's aspects I love. There's aspects I like. There's aspects I'm mild about. But it's not like I hate everything or I'm not. You don't have to. It's not a black and white thing where I need to have this great passion in life, or else I just can't. I guess I can't be successful. That's not true at all. It's just not true. I once worked with a guy years ago who had a business. He had a business selling, and this is his own words, selling crap, holiday crap, things like this hat. He would sell these little tchotchkes, like $3 items to like Walmart. And he was a wholesaler, a distributor. And he was not turned on by his business at all. He thought it was dumb. He literally said, I sell holiday shit. That was his thing. He wasn't like, oh, I'm so passionate about holiday. He didn't give a shit about that. He just found a place that he knew he could make money. He had a background in it. He started a business, and he did well. He was a high income guy, did very well for himself, traveled the world for business, and he liked it. But it wasn't something he was super passionate about. It's something he found that he was at least mildly interested in, and he pursued, and he became successful at it. It wasn't like, Lady Gaga and she wants to be famous. It wasn't like that. It was just something that he chose. So Billy just said it, choose something. You can't sit around and wait for, inspiration to just hit you and say, the word of God says I need to do this. You may have to get off your ass and go. Matter of fact, the likelihood is you may have to get off your own ass and go choose something proactively instead of waiting for something to hit you. I was really interested in computers when I was a kid. And so that helped me. But within 10 years, I was done with computer. Like, this is boring. I want to do something else. So, and I had to go choose something. Yeah.
My brother's a good example of that too. I believe he still is, but I might be mistaken, the biggest seller of Fiskars products worldwide on eBay. And for those of you who don't know, Fiskars is a company that makes scissors. Yeah, scissors.
Yeah.
For sewing and crafting and upholstery. They also do some craft products. So they, for a while, were into scrapbooking products, and they still make tons of punches.
He's literally the biggest reseller of those products on eBay?
In the world, yes.
In the world. Wow. Okay, interesting. I didn't know that. Damn.
He fell into that. That, again, my brother's not a crafter. Scrapbooking, sure as hell, is not a passion of his.
Yeah, he's a boy.
In his mid-20s, and they had a warehouse, and he and his business partner would go to trade shows around the country. They'd send their pods, refill them from the road, send them ahead so they didn't have to take a lot of equipment, and show up and go to these craft shows. And these scrapbooking shows, ladies are paid, $50 just to get in the door to spend money shopping.
It's insane.
It's nutso. And it's not an environment my brother, or any young guy who's not into scrapbooking really likes to be in, because it's a bunch of old ladies. Right. My brother ate that shit up. He had a lot of fun with it because they were young guys, and he could demo products, and people thought it was so cute and so funny.
That's so funny.
This young, energetic guy. And so he really played that up. He's an introvert too. But at the trade shows, he'd live it up, have a great time entertaining the ladies, and go home and count his money. Again, he didn't have a passion, but he had fun with it. He made a point.
And you know what he had? He had a niche. He was very, very niche. That's what you and I scream all day long about fucking niching. He didn't just sell stuff at a trade show. He sold a specific brand of scissors to women who were doing scrapbooking. You can't get more niche than that. And that's why it was easier for him to make money, because he was niched. But he didn't say, to your point, he didn't wake up and say, I want to sell scissors to little moms.
No.
He never did that. He went and chose it, and he chose a niche. There's a lot of money in niches like that. I'll give my story on that. There was a woman I worked with for years. I haven't talked to her in a long time. She's back in the US. She sold point of sale systems for like little mom and pop retail stores. And she had a problem with her, I forget what she had, a problem with her distributor, because she was a reseller for a certain brand of POS, not piece of shit, but point of sale, POS systems. And so she had to come up with another way of making money. And so I forget where she got the idea of quilting, even more weird than scrapbooking. Women who do quilting, they make quilts, like these old ladies do quilts. I don't know where she came up with it. It wasn't even something she did. I think her mom did it, or she had a friend who did it. Anyway, her and her assistant went to a trade show. There's only 2 trade shows, 2 or 3 national trade shows in quilting per year in the United States, at least pre-pandemic, probably back now. And so she went to this trade show to sell her new point of sale system from a new reseller to all these old ladies who had quilting shops and quilting equipment and quilting this and quilting that. She made, I don't remember the amount. It was a 6-figure amount in 2 days. And she was like, oh my God. So all she started doing was 2 or 3 times a year. That's her only marketing she did. She went to these quilting trade shows, and she would just rack up the clients. It was amazing. And it's from quilting. She's explaining this to me, and I'm going, quilting? I had to ask her, like, wait, quilt? So they make blankets? Because yes, these little ladies make blankets. I said, you're making that kind of money from little old ladies making blankets? She's like, yeah, it's fucking great.
Oh
so
my gosh. Yeah.
The riches are in the niches, man. God dang.
I can attest to that. My friend's mother and her siblings are into quilting, and they bought like this big frame thing so you can actually like quilt it together.
Okay.
But the frame thing costs like 30 grand. They have it in a cabin that the family shares up north. It's a huge investment just for this hobby for like 4 old ladies to occasionally, like, when they're done making all the little bits of the blanket and they're together, then they have to do this other step that they either send it off to have someone else do it, or they buy this expensive equipment to do it themselves. It's nuts. So, and most niches are like that.
I'll give you one more crazy niche. I have never brought this up because it's a little controversial, but I'll do it because it's awesome. And then I got to go because I have another appointment. But I was on the phone with a guy, and he was talking about how he was selling a certain kind of toy, again, at trade shows.
I know who you're talking about.
Okay, maybe I told you about this. Okay. And I said, well, what kind of toy? He goes, well, it's a kind of toy. It's a toy. I'm like, yeah, what kind of toy? Well, he didn't want to tell me. And I said, what kind of toy? He said, and this is actually the second time I had this conversation with another, because another guy told me about this. He goes, well, do you know what a brony is? And I said, no, what's that? He goes, okay. He goes, do you know what My Little Pony is? I said, yes. He's like, well, a brony is a grown man who's really into My Little Pony. I said, huh? He goes, yeah, it's like and it is. It's a big thing. They have like conventions and they have trade show type thing. I said, and again, like with the quilt, I didn't understand. Like, explain this to me. So these are grown men who like the My Little Pony toys. He goes, it's not just the toys. It's the toys, the videos, the posters, their software. It's a whole world.
Yeah.
Clothing. And I said, this is really funny. I said, is it a sexual thing? And he goes, oh yeah. He just said it like, oh yeah, it's totally a sexual thing. I'm like, okay. So he sold, what did he sell? He didn't sell the ponies. He sold something else, accessories to the ponies. And he was making, I don't think he was making 6 figures, but he was making $80K a year part-time doing this because he was one of these brony guys. Okay, great. Wonderful. That is something that you do love, I guess, that you lean into what you love. But I mean, again, all these crazy niches. We should do a podcast one of these days on crazy niches because I've run into a bunch of weird ones.
I've definitely run into some weird ones too, and they're always interesting. It's always
it's great.
I can't use, like pool chemical supply, pool chemicals. I can't even
pool chemical supplies.
Chemicals.
Yeah, another favorite one I've heard of is guys who design their own electric guitar pedals.
Oh,
because if you press different pedals, you get different distortion. I used to play guitar when I was a kid, and you could get different distortions and different effects when you press the pedal. And there was a guy who was selling the pedals or selling the schematics on how to make your own pedals. He was making bucks. I'm like, what the hell? I mean, like I said, the more narrow you can go with your niche, the more money you can make. Yeah. So, and that's an example of something that he liked, that he probably thought most guys into guitar who have these pedals are not thinking about, well, I don't know anything. And there's no one would give a shit about my pedals or no. Yes, they do. Yeah. Yeah.
It's amazing, guys. You can be an expert on anything. Just lean into some interest. Right. Honestly, make yourself read, follow different voices, and then develop your own. It's really that easy. As long as you have some interest, your clients are always going to feel that. Your audience is going to feel that. If you try to force it, it's not going to work.
Mm-hmm. And it's not as complicated as you think. It's not as hard or as complicated as most people seem to think. Most people seem to think that being an authority or an expert or something on that is very complicated. And it's like, I have to go back to school and I have to get this training. I have to do this and that. I have to wait 3 years at this job before I can say, no, you can do it now. Literally. And Billy and I are both examples of people who just said, okay, I'm an expert. We did it differently, but it works. And that's how a lot of people are. You could do it right now. You could do it next month. Yeah.
I would encourage you to do that. This is follow your happiness. For me, it's following the dopamine hits. When I get that positive feedback from a client, I get lots of dopamine and I want to keep going. So find those things that make you happy, that bring you joy, or at the very least, you don't hate it.
Right.
Your company's never going to grow if you're not into what you're doing. So
make some decisions about this. And you're probably seeing this podcast around Christmas time, hopefully, or around the new year, right after the new year. So make some decisions about 2023. It's not as hard as you think.
It's not. It truly isn't. You can be an expert on anything, usually within a couple of months. So put your interest into something, put your energy into something, and you'd be surprised how far you can go.
Yep.
All right, Caleb. Well, I know that we both have to get on with our Merry Christmas preparations.
We do. Yes, we do. I have so many Christmas preparations. Yes.
Yes, and I'll just put
I gotta buy another hat.
My Wisconsin winter sun hat on.
Yeah, you need to just leave that on now all day.
I think I will.
It's morning for you. It's nighttime for me.
It is. And I'm headed to the dog park next, but I don't think this hat will be sufficient for that outing.
Oh, that's hard work going to the dog park. That's why we make big bucks. It's
freaking cold.
I know. Oh, I know it is where you live. Shit. Here it's perfect.
Well, I'll see you there in about a month.
That's right. You will. Yeah.
All right, everyone. Thanks for joining us this week. Next week, Caleb isn't going to be with us. We'll have a special guest, and we'll tell you more about that as we head into the week. Caleb, don't look so surprised.
Guys. Yeah, that's exactly.
You knew you were replaceable, even if you are ridiculously handsome.
I know. It's a burden I'm willing to bear.
Good man. We'll talk to you all soon. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks, everybody.